This is week 5 of a 5-week series called Time for Fire. And if you missed any of them, you can see them on our website. You go to Sunday videos, and you can do the whole series if you want. I decided back in July, when it was time to delineate what we were going to do, that it's hot, and that August is a perfect time to acknowledge that heat and make use of thermodynamics, to make use of the fact that it's hot, just like we do any other universal law, and allow what that quality offers up, what that principle, what that law offers up, to contribute to our lives in some meaningful way. And so what we did is we started with passion and purpose. We moved to promise and possibility. Then we stepped into wholeness and whole being. Then last week we talked about making a difference. And this week we're going to be talking about firing your kiln. So firing your kiln is an interesting concept. I was thinking about this concept of fire and this idea that we'd be putting the finishing touches on what we have accomplished. There's a saying that when fishermen cannot go to sea, they mend their nets. And I thought about that, and I thought about also that because I have a background in the yachting industry, that there are some people who go cruising at this time of year, and others take summer as an opportunity for what's called a refit. So this is sort of like a metaphysical refit, you know? And some of us have been doing a little bit of cruising and a little bit of refit. Nonetheless, this weekend marks the end of this period that we have been moving through together and apart. Some of us going off and about to come back, and others of us doing a combination of those things. Some of you have children or grandchildren who are just going back to school, and you've been participating in helping them out or getting them settled. You know, some are going back. We have some among us who are teachers who have returned recently to the school district to do their teaching or to play their role in that big piece of machinery. Others of us are just acknowledging that the world seems to be turning a page and getting ready to settle in for something. We call it season. We recognize, those of us who stay here all the time, that the roads will get a little more crowded and the lines will get a little longer as we share this space with other people who come in just for the coming months and leave again next spring. So there's a turning of the pages. The reason I picked the firing your kiln metaphor was that even though I'm not a ceramic artist, I know that what you do when you complete a piece in ceramics is to choose how you will present it, how you want it the final product to look. And so you'll choose a glaze that represents the idea of it as much as possible. And by the way, there are all kinds of chemical laws you have to know about in order to create a glaze. I tried to learn them over the past few days, and never mind. It is a way of living, this ceramic art world. So there's that, and then firing is a whole other group of physical, scientific principles and laws in order to have your end result be the end result and not something else. So much to understand and to cooperate with. And then to blend one's creative urges with the understanding and the application of these laws produces this amazing stuff. And one of the things that we end up with is something that we can put on the shelf that tells the story of the journey. We can look at it and say, oh, this tells the story of everything that I went through to create this result. Everything I had to learn and understand and cooperate with and surrender. Everything. Now, one temptation is to say, okay, now I have that trophy on my shelf. I have that symbol of that one journey I took. Oh, it was so amazing. Do you ever catch yourself talking about the glory days? I think I was talking with Sparrow last week a little bit about it. Because many of us at this point in our lives have had 2 or 3 or more career chapters. We've learned how to do a few different amazing things. And once in a while, I hanker for that thing that I already know how to do so well. Something that I had 25 or 30 years worth of experience in. Sometimes it looks tempting because I already know it. And so my glory days would be, oh gosh, I was doing this. Here's a picture of me when I did the fire academy. Here's a picture of me learning how to launch a lifeboat. Here's a picture of me steering, out at sea. Oh, that's wonderful. I was excited. The kid in me was excited. I wore a uniform. I had a radio. I pushed like this, and I spoke into it, and I said important things, and important things happened, But there's more. The other part of that story is that I tried to stay there in my glory days. I tried to stay where I had been. And I kept developing physical ailments that wouldn't allow it. They were all in my right arm because this was my hero appendage. And so while I got so much out of knowing how to do things so well in such an excellent way, and I got paid really well for it, it was this whole big chunk of life, including this one right here, by the way, and mine with Rick, that could not happen unless I was willing to let it go. So on my shelf, I have the trophies of that life, and yet something greater pushed me sometimes through pain. I couldn't get through the night without icing my arm, and it was just impossible to recover from the level of activity that I was involved in. I could no longer get my sense of identity and purpose from that job. I had to let my glory days go. So I still have the trophies on the shelf, so to speak. And yet, what that forced me to do is to find the next one. So we have this idea that we're celebrating a summer refit, that we took the past month, and whether you did it all with us physically, or you did it remotely, or you realized you missed something and you're going to go find out what that was. The whole month of August has been dedicated to discovering or rediscovering your passion and your purpose. To remembering that you are a person of possibility, surrounded by infinite possibility. That possibility is within you, and you have a relationship with it, and it has expression by means of you. And that as you discover or rediscover that level of wholeness, a whole new world becomes available to you. And then we have this amazing urge to share it, to give it away, to turn towards the others in our lives, close and far, and say, I want to make a difference. And finally, as we put the finishing touches, as we choose the glaze, before we fire this thing today, we look at the journey. We look at the steps that we took that got us here. How about that? What other result could they produce except for something magnificent and beautiful and powerful and meaningful, a legacy, and in the meantime, a purposeful existence, one of impact? What else could they produce but something that we would be joy-filled to tell the story about? And yes, someday, this level of revelation and becoming and achievement and so on that we have reached will also be eclipsed by greater horizons, new visions, things which pull us to do even more. When we were in our meditation this morning, I was reminding myself, you can use any terminology you want, by the way, but Spirit does the work. The law, universal law of all creation does the work. Ernest Holmes says that love points the way, and law makes the way possible. This doesn't have to be hard. It can be about willingly letting go of what isn't and tuning in to this powerful wave of spirit expressing itself by means of its creations and having an effortless and extraordinarily powerful experience. There's something else that I was thinking about when I say the word extraordinary. And before that, I want to talk about exceptional. We do a lot of things every day with such dedication. We do them with regularity. We do them religiously. We do them with discipline. Such as brushing our teeth, doing the dishes, washing the clothes. I decided that maybe there's a point where we say, well, no, not really, depending on what matters to us. But there are certainly some things that we do every day, habitually, that serve us. And they produce results that serve us. The thing is, we don't seem to do these things that would make our lives more exceptional, except when circumstances sort of push us in that direction. And what I mean by that is that we end up having an ordinary kind of discipline rather than an extraordinary one. And we think of miracles as exceptions rather than the rule. And the truth is that our lives could be exceptionally miraculous all the time if we were to dare to behave, to think and to feel, to speak and to act with dedication, discipline, with regularity, religiously. If we were to do those things regularly, we could have exceptional experiences all the time, and they'd no longer be that. They'd be our new ordinary. We don't have to wait for exceptional circumstances to drive us to do these things. So often we come together in catastrophe or emergency, in compassion due to some unexpected great pain or disaster. So often we use all of our spiritual tools when we're scared into a corner. So often we use these things just when we're in a pickle. For a long time I recognized that I was like the queen of Band-Aid spirituality. And I would have my trophy stories. I've got one from 1998. I'm in a prosperity class. There are about this many of us, and we're doing all of our reading and our praying and our declaring and our knowing, and I do this magnificent ceremony and this great prayer, and there's an answering message on the answering machine, and my income was quadrupled. And I had to leave in 10 days. I had to pack up and leave my life and go to the new one in 10 days. And I ended up in Europe. I told that story a lot. And there are so many times in between then and now when it would have been really great to have more exceptional experiences. And yet it was easy to talk about it like it was unique and rare, rather than to think of it as something that could happen all the time if I was willing to dedicate myself to using the same steps that created that outcome more often. So August was an example of taking steps to create an outcome. Now we're going to choose the glaze, we're going to fire this thing, and we're going to say, this is what happened for me and my life as a result of choosing to take these steps. As a result of choosing to understand how the laws involved work and how to use them on purpose for specific ends. This is the beautiful outcome. We can do that every day. It doesn't have to be rare. And so rather than having extraordinary experiences only once in a while, We can have extraordinary experiences by choosing to be, to think, to feel, to speak, to act in extraordinary ways all the time, until that's our new ordinary. Because there's no limit to what we can reach. There's no limit to what we can become. Centers for Spiritual Living just did a values assessment, and I believe I may have spoken about this briefly last week. All Centers for Spiritual Living participated in this. And it made me think, how many of us are doing our ordinary things, deciding what's most important, based upon other people's values? When you look at where your discipline is, when you look at your regular practice, when you look at where your habits are, is your discipline, are your habits, and are your regular practices all reflections of what matters most to you? Are they based on your values? Are they a reflection of your priorities? Or possibly, are some of them belonging to someone else? Perhaps someone who raised you. Perhaps someone who mentored you or taught you. Now, in many cases, we cherish what we learn from those people, and we share those values, and we hold them sacred, and we gladly adhere to them. And it's possible that there's something that you're doing every day because your mother or your father thought it was important, but there's something alive in you that needs that energy back to make something else a priority that has to do with who you are, what you value, and your gift to give in this world. So I invite you, as you consider how you want to wrap up this summer season, how you want to choose the glaze and fire the product that you have created over the past couple of months, maybe unknowingly this summer. How do you want to step into tomorrow and the last quarter of the year and this season, whatever you call that? Consider doing a little reevaluation, literally. Ask yourself, what matters most to me? As Reverend Kathy Ann said in Seattle, what does my perfect day look like? What does my perfect week look like? What's my ideal month involve? And what's my idea of the perfect year? You still have time to create that. You still have time to wrap up 2014 in a way that says, yes, I have fine-tuned my experience so that I am being me. I'm giving the gifts that come through me. I'm living a life that's meaningful to me, not because of selfishness, but because the unique gifts that each one of us has to offer can come through no one else. We have a beautiful responsibility to identify what those are and to live them. So I invite you to just consider that this weekend, Labor Day weekend. What have you labored over? And what are you returning to? What are the loving labors that you return to willingly? Because they're in alignment with what matters to you. They're an outpicturing and an active representation of your values. They're a statement of your priorities. There's so much more than just you because you're part of a great whole. And the time for that whole thing to be glazed, to be fired, and to show up for all the world to see is right now. And so it